going on, Jerome's? So lost in the shuffle of all of the stuff going on with the Minnesota Vikings and Kirk Cousins and Danielle Hunter, Marcus Davenport, as well as Justin friggin' Jefferson, is what exactly is going to happen with superstar, future Hall of Fame safety Harrison Smith. Now, Harrison, definitely OG from back in the day, 2012 first-round pick. The Vikings had 2 first-round picks that year. Don't look up the other one. But the pride of Notre Dame has came in, and he's been an absolute superstar for the Vikings, and he's been one of the best Vikings defensive backs in history. 22 should be retired, and yes, I will make the case fervently that Harrison Smith should be in the Hall of Fame. His numbers are comparable or better than Troy Polamalu, but that's an argument for another day. But the question is, with Kwesi's Moneyball approach and also the purging of some veterans over the last 2 off seasons, will this be it for Harrison Smith? Now, Harrison probably would have been washed out last off season if he didn't take a significant pay cut. He was due a $14 million base salary, skinned that thing down to $8 million plus $2 million in incentives, and part of it is, I'm sure Harrison, liked it here, as well as he wanted to play under Brian Flores. Also, I mean, him and his agent probably looked at the market as like a 34-year-old at the time safety probably wasn't going to get more than $10 million per year. So it is what it is. And now the Vikings, Harrison did have a very solid season last year. Now, was he vintage 2017 Harrison Smith? No. No, he wasn't, but was he very solid in the Flores scheme and what he was asked to do? Yes. So like him and Beasley and Metellus formed the freaking trident of safeties on the back end of the Flores defense, and was really solid. But now the question is, will the Vikings be forced to cut Harrison Smith, or will Harrison Smith just straight up retire? Or if the Vikings cut Harrison Smith, would he sign somewhere else? Who really knows? But over at the 33rd team, Ari Mariov, our guy, put together a 2024 NFL free agency, one potential cap casualty for each team. And, of course, the Vikings, yeah, so Harrison, this is what he wrote. Cap savings, 11.3, dead 7.8. Harrison Smith took a pay cut last year to stick around the Minnesota Vikings and could be presented with a similar situation again this offseason. So now he is due a $14.25 million base salary this year. 14.4. But he's not going to be seeing that money. And the Vikings can save $11 million by moving on. Now, it could be another compromise spot. Like maybe Harrison feels like he wants to play it one more year, one last ride. He had good success last year. He was not a liability on the back end of the defense. So maybe they could work something out. Another lower base salary with incentives. I could certainly live with that. Eric continues, blah, 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 salary not guaranteed. GM Kwesi adofo-mensah started me tear down last year, some of the aging veterans, and he could finish it off this season. And what's interesting is that once Harrison retires or leaves, and if Danielle leaves, I mean, that's it. I mean, that's really it from the old school, old guard defense of Harrison and Kendricks and Barr and Everson and Linval and Danielle and Harrison Smith and Xavier Rhodes. I mean, that was a damn good defense, man. With the peak Zimmer years, but time goes by so slowly. The only thing consistent is change. It's crazy, man. But with Harrison's big time contract, the Vikings do have some cap gymnastics to do, especially if they want to be players of free agency, especially if they do bring back Kirk Cousins and or Danielle Hunter, and I do think that Harrison could be one of those spots. Plus, let's not forget. So Kwesi's first draft pick, Lewis Cine, number 32 overall. Yes, he's not Kyle Hamilton. Yes, blah, 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 blah. And we said this before. If Lewis Cine doesn't break his leg in London as a rookie, I think that Harrison is cut last offseason. But the fact that Cine hasn't been fully healthy for 2 years really delayed moving on from 22, because that's what I think. I do think that Cine was drafted to replace Harrison Smith 1-for-1. But also, if Cine is 100% finally and good to go, and Kwesi, he's an analytical guy, but he does have an ego too. And he's like, hey, I've been getting so much ish about Lewis Cine. It's time for him to get into the starting lineup, and that would be helped if Harrison Smith did indeed move on. Now, if Harrison is cut, the Vikings had that $11.3 million in cap space. Maybe he goes down to Dallas and plays on new defensive coordinator Mike Zimmer's defense down there, shows the young guys the ropes, etc. And maybe that's where he spends his golden years. Because I think Harrison could play at least a year, maybe 2 if he wanted to, but also take into account his comments at the end of the season, right? So yes, it was a long, trying season, and Yeah, he was banged up. His shoulder was aching. Wouldn't shock me if it came out that he had to have shoulder surgery at some point this offseason. But he sounded like a dude who was sort of over it. And yes, I think you factor in the injury, the way that the season ended, Vikings losing 6 out of 7. That does factor in. But Harrison, he's married, he's got kids, he's got interests outside of football, and I think that it could be a spot where he does hang him up and he does retire as a one-team guy, and sort of takes that burden away from the Vikings, where he retires as opposed to making them cut him. And who knows? Or he could just say, Prince, I'm back, or whatever that was last year. Who knows, man? But either way, if this really is it with Harry, for me, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's a slam dunk Vikings Ring of Honor guy. He's one of the best safeties I've ever seen throughout my years. Like, it's like, hey, find a combination of Paul Krause's ball hawk ability and Joey Browner's hammer and just bring that together. That was Harrison Smith, man. Absolutely fantastic. And you know what? If the Vikings cut him and he plays a year for Dallas, I'll secretly be rooting for him and Zim, and Barr's probably going to join him too, just not against the Vikings. And besides, Dak will screw it up anyway. And did you see that Dak might get $60 million per year? Get out of here, man. Get out of here. But your thoughts are thoughts. Will Harrison Smith be a Vikings cap casualty this offseason? Question mark. Let us know in the comment section below. You guys know what to do. Skol, production value.